everybody. Here we are a week late, skipped a week, but we're back for episode 16 of the Robby show.
All right. And this time is the actual episode 16. La-
That's
last
right.
last episode I said it was episode 16, but I was wrong. Everywhere else on the links and the names, everywhere it said 15, but I decided to say 16.
This is the twice done episode. That's
Yeah. So we got two episode 16s. All right. So exciting week, I think. Uh, there are a few updates that we can share regarding the project. Um, I'll let Lee. I don't want to take it from Lee. I know that he did most of the work on them, so I'll let
no, you
him.
take it. I don't know what you got in mind exactly.
Well, there is a huge website redesign, um, and you also added a separate place where you can add articles as you write them or as we write them. So that was good, and there was a lot of work there. Um, there were some other menial stuff regarding the analytics that we fixed. That's something that we wanted to do. Finally got it done. But yeah, most I think you did a great job, Lee.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, we actually have almost like a real blog system now, and you can even put in comments. So please be kind. Oh, Julian is here.
Hey,
Hello,
hey,
Cracks.
Julian.
Hello, Julian. How are you? And hey, Michael, it's good to see you again, or good to see your name again.
Yeah, thanks for joining, Michael.
Yeah, it was an interesting week in a lot of ways. I actually spent almost of 3 days interacting with this guy on emails. Um, that is, he's actually we had that guy that contacted us that was a robotics scientist, and he put us in contact with someone else who's also a robotic scientist that was a roboticist for 18 years and is retired now.
Okay.
Really interesting guy. Exchanged a number of emails with him over the week, and really interesting stuff. His perspective on what's important about robotics and stuff like that was really useful for me, um, and kind of in a way affirming, because it's things that I'd recognize, but he put them in a different way and much more succinctly than I really would have, and been really an interesting time getting to know that guy.
That's good.
Yeah.
Um, I have to catch up on those emails, Lee. If Yeah, last week. So the reason why we didn't have a live stream last week was because we had some production issues at my day job, and I had to work late. So there was no way that I could, um, you know, hop on with Lee to do the stream. So we decided just to postpone it. Um,
I was chicken to do it by myself.
um, Michael says that I need a refresher, a refresher in WordPress.
Well, that's what, you get too many of those production issues, and that could be right. That could be your fallback,
Yeah.
your new day job.
Yeah. So let's see what else do we have happening, Lee. So we still have the ad campaign. There's still some more work that we want to do on the site. Well, that I have pending. Um, not so much on the product front. I don't think we've done or you've done any work on the actual product. We're
Not much lately, but I did add a new thing into our roadmap, um, which it came from these conversations that I'm having with this guy that was the roboticist.
Hmm.
Which I want to add in some things to support more of the idea of subsumption programming, which I think I've talked to you a little bit about that in the
Hmm.
past, but where this guy, one of the things he said that was great was it was kind of a joke that somebody at where he had worked had about. Yes, everybody. It was a guy who had a bunch of roboticists working for him, and he said, "Yeah, everybody that works for me is a robot, but it doesn't help because they all still subscribe to this thing where the urgent always displaces the necessary."
Yeah.
And I really loved that because that is so much of what goes on in programming a robot and having a robot. It doesn't matter how important it is for the robot to pick up a beer bottle, like for ours, for instance. If that robot's about to run into a wall, it's much more important that they stop and don't run into the wall. So that's this idea of subsumption where you have priorities for different behaviors that can subsume other ones when necessary.
Mm.
So I want to build that into the our master control program a little more, or at least make it an option. So that's kind of an interesting thing, but that's a roadmap thing. We're not going to be doing that right away.
Julian says that you are a master in programming.
Yeah, well, I'm a master at nothing, but I've written a whole lot of code and I can write it pretty fast.
Yeah. So, do you have a demo planned, Lee? Otherwise, I have a few topics that um, I would like to talk about, at least to spark a conversation. And hopefully, Michael can jump in and give us his opinion about it.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I don't have much. Mostly what I focused on this week so much was talking with that guy. I didn't get that much else done. But I also have some topics if we run out of yours.
Okay. So let's see which one is the first one. It's one that we've probably talked about a little bit during the last week or two, um, and that is unit testing. What do you think about unit tests? And I pretty much know what you think, but I want you to share
Tell
it
me.
with.
I'm afraid to say, I might have to go get a job again. I still think the best thing I've ever heard anybody say about unit testing was, and this isn't really exactly how I feel about it, but I had a friend who I asked him what he thought about TDD, and he said, "I think you should do it right the first time," which
Yes.
which I continue to love that. Interesting. I read an article about it seems like more and more people are kind of coming out and saying, "Yeah, boy, I really love the idea, but I don't know about the reality." And that's kind of where I'm at with it. To be clear, to me, I always will tell anybody if anybody's asking me, what does it take to be a good programmer? The very first thing I will always say is testing. Any programmer is only as good as the testing he does. It's really about how you do that testing and when you do that testing. Um, and this notion of writing the test first and then writing the code. Yeah, boy, that sounds great, but I just don't know. That's you're going to spend so much time on that to me it's hard to justify it. You better get a lot of benefit out of it, and maybe you will, but I have yet to be in a situation where I felt like on balance it came out to where there was enough benefit behind it for the time you're going to spend on it. But that's a very controversial thing to say, and it could be a
Yeah.
killer in a job interview. Don't if you're new to this and you're in a job interview, don't go in there and say that if somebody's into TDD because you won't get the job. Testing is second. A good programmer solves problems. I agree. But if you write code that doesn't work, doesn't matter.
Yeah.
And for me, the only way I've found to know if code works is to test it.
Yeah.
It's how you test it and when you test it that is the key to me.
Yeah, and so the argument, right, that I have, or that I guess my way of thinking is that it is good in some situations, for some enterprises, for some businesses, but it's not. I don't think it's feasible everywhere. So, for example, when you're doing contract work, the client is not going to care about how solid your code is. They're going to care more about is how soon can you deliver it. And the other downside is whenever you need to refactor, um, it's a nightmare. If you need to move functionality from one file to another, from one class to another, it's 30% of the whole work is actually doing the code changes. 70% of the work is making sure that all the tests are updated and they still work.
Yeah,
So
on the
it
nose.
yeah, it's there's just so much work. So long term, I'm pretty sure that it will pay dividends, but as you're doing it, it seems like it's just a lot of work, a big investment, for long term. I don't think that if you're gonna do like an MVP or something, version one type of deal, I don't think it's feasible for you to build all these tests right off the bat. So
Yeah, yeah, I agree with all of that. It's just it's a balance there at some point, and if you've got really competent programmers that are capable of writing solid code, I don't know. And the other thing that happens, if particularly like the last job you and I worked together in, where so much of the code was stored procedures and databases. Well, the whole unit testing thing with that doesn't work that good.
doesn't work. Yeah, it doesn't.
And even if it's not stored procedures, just having data to test them with, a lot of the time, what you're testing when you test is data, is how different data acts when it goes through your code. So you have to have that set of testing data, and people say, okay, well, yeah, we'll mock the data. Well, okay, that's fine. But if you mock the data, you're not really testing the database. And the database that you're making changes to, and you're sending code from the database through the code, all that's what has to match and has to work together. So it has to be tested. And as soon as you go down that road in unit tests, somebody goes in there and changes that data in the database. You have to have really good control over that, because if they go and change that data in the database, which almost is inevitable because the data will change and the shape of the data will change over time, you're screwed. You have to go redo all that.
Yeah,
So then you're redoing the code and the data and the database and keeping all of that lined up. I think to really make it work, you need someone that doesn't really do anything but ride herd on that, on keeping the database in line and keeping all the ducks in a line. Yeah, the coders can go in and write the tests, but you need somebody monitoring it all and keeping it all lined up, or else it quickly becomes useless. Once that data doesn't line up, or the database is out of date with what's going on in the unit tests or anything like that, they become
yeah,
useless.
yep.
So that's it. I'm
My
semi-retired,
mom,
so I
my
can't be fired for saying it.
yeah. So so I guess just like many things, right? It works and it's beneficial in some cases, uh, but you're not gonna go with the hammer trying to just hitting everything that looks like a nail, right? So
Yeah,
you
there's
gotta
no
find where,
absolutes.
yeah, you gotta find out where it works and where it doesn't. Um, yeah, so that was a good conversation.
Yeah, I've exposed myself now. I'm probably gonna get flamed and stuff for saying
So this
all the
is this is
DDD
another one.
purists out there.
This is another, and sometime during the week, somebody wrote an article about how ethical it is to do web scraping.
Ah,
So,
I've
what
never
are
done
your
that.
sure, surely. I think that it's probably when you are starting out and you understand how the web works and you actually know how to put some code together. That's probably one of the first things that people tend to do. Especially, probably was more popular back then because now you have APIs for almost everything, right? And before it's like, oh yeah, I want this data. How do I do it? There was one. I used to use Quicken back in the day, and they had an integration with PayPal. And so you would, you from Quicken, you were able to download data by, providing your credentials to your PayPal account. Well, I didn't know that they were web scraping. So whenever PayPal changed their reports to download transactions or for you to view transactions, Quicken would break. And one time I called PayPal and it's like, hey, how come this is not working? It's like, we don't support them. We have no type of relationship with Quicken. So
It's
I
not
don't
our
know.
fault.
Yeah. So
And in
that's like,
fact, we like it when we break it.
exactly. So yeah. So again, right, going back to like, how ethical is it for people to do that, right? Like when you don't have access to the API, but you start just making requests to get the data you want.
Well, just what you just described with the Quicken example is why it's, in a commercial situation, it's not really very feasible. Ethical or not, it's not a very good idea because they go change that
Mhm.
website and the pattern that you're looking for in the HTML or however you're getting the stuff off of the web page is going to change and it's going to be gone and you're going to be screwed. So,
Yeah.
yeah. And is it ethical or not? I don't know. You can certainly make the argument that it's not ethical. Uh, at the same time, I guess it's like a lot of things to my mind. It comes down to what you're doing with it and how you're using it. If you're
Yeah.
doing it for some personal research project or something like that, yeah, not that big a deal. If you're going in and getting data from somebody and then using it to make millions of dollars, I got more issues with that.
Yeah.
But regardless of whether it's ethical or not, it's pretty much a bad idea, I think.
Because yeah, you have no way of telling, right, when they're going to change the format or the layout, and then you're in trouble.
Yeah, yeah. It's like saying DDoS is ethical. Well, I think that's a little bit of a stretch, but maybe. It's and I don't think there's any situation where I would say DDoS is ethical. But web scraping is not always for a malicious purpose.
Yeah.
DDoS is pretty much always a malicious purpose. There's no, oh gee, I'm going to go DDoS on you just because I like you.
Yeah, and then there's been cases where the I guess the entity where you're scraping the data from are okay with you doing it, and they give you permission because they're not able to um, deploy an API for you to use. And so in some cases, I guess in cases like that where you go ask for permission, hey, can we do this? We're trying to do this. Um, then I guess in a case like that is I guess it works out for both, for both parties.
I've actually been in that situation in a job I had, oh, 6 or 8 years ago now. Um, we were scraping from a power company's page. Won't say what power company, but people that live around here can probably guess. And at that point, they were actually kind of encouraging it because we wanted to get some data that they said, well, we're going to be making it available by API at some point, but right now, yeah, you can go pull it off the web page if you want. And they
Hmm.
were okay with it, although they became not okay with it after a period of time, and started and but they were kind enough to let us know, so we're going to like start changing the page so you can't scrape it anymore. Um, but it was all right because then they put out the API where we were able to get the data anyway. Which goes back to what you
Okay.
were saying. A lot of companies now are making that kind of data available anyway on APIs because they're finding that
Yeah.
it's a valid service to offer.
Yeah. It's just more secured. You know who's accessing your site or your API instead of, guessing.
Yeah, to
um,
me, the whole idea even of web scraping is like a 2002 kind of an idea. In 2022, yeah, you really ought to be beyond that by now.
okay. So I have another one. Let's see. So this was announced this week. And actually, before starting the live stream, I was just talking about iPhones, and I know Michael is a huge fan of iPhones and the whole ecosystem. Actually, I'm being sarcastic. I know he doesn't like
I see.
it.
As much as he's a
uh,
fan of web page scraping, okay.
but yeah, this came out, and I think we might have talked about something similar before. here is here is his comment.
I rubbish needs money because they're hurting. I rubbish. I like that. Not being a big Apple fan myself either. Well, this is
So
interesting. So they're encouraging people to open up their MacBooks and try to fix it.
yeah, so
Wow.
they will sell you parts and rent tools for you to repair your computer. Which I think it's a good idea, but I think it's also because they were getting a lot of pressure. I think there was a lawsuit um,
Uh,
because they were not allowing one, they were not selling parts, and they were not allowing people to fix them. Um, so finally, I guess they changed their mind, but now they're gonna make money because now they're gonna sell you the parts.
it's a revenue stream.
Exactly. So now instead of you going out there and buying something, aftermarket, now you can get legitimate Apple parts and put them on your machine. So
Boy, it
I
seems
guess,
fraught with peril to me. First person that goes in there and electrocutes themselves, they're going to sue Apple.
yeah. But it's so then that this kind of made me or reminded me about I think it was, I want to say it's BMW. One of their newer models um, has cooling for under seats, but it has to be enabled via software. So the hardware is there for the car to be able to do so, but you have to pay for them to enable it. So it's like, what the heck?
Can I get? Is that like you have to get a subscription for it? it's oh
It,
no, my
I
annual
would imagine.
subscription on the seat cooling is coming up. Oh crap!
Yeah. So I thought this was interesting because it's kind of going that way, right? To where, like, even Teslas, right? I believe that they have like the hardware for them to have the autopilot functionality, but you have to pay for the software.
That is
Um,
really interesting.
So I wonder if more car makers are going to start, doing something similar where it's going to be another, revenue source for them to. Hey, you
Oh
want you want all
crap! I
four
gotta
tires
update the
or?
car's OS again, and I gotta pay.
Yeah.
I don't
If you
think
want
I'm
to go
gonna pay
past
for the
50,
radio this year.
yeah. If you want to go past 55, you have to go to the higher tier.
That's right. That's right. You have the different tiers. I love it. Yeah.
Jeez.
Everything in tier one, plus you can go 85 now.
Yeah. Yeah. So I thought it was interesting to kind of talk about that. So
Yeah,
let's
yeah.
let's get into your topics, Lee.
Oh man, mine aren't as good as yours, but let's see here. What do I have? One's kind of an
Sure they
interesting
are.
thing. Michael might be familiar with this one. Um, it's I don't think it's the exact anniversary, but it's the 26th anniversary of the cuckoo's egg. Do you know what the cuckoo's egg was?
Oh, what is that,
I
Lee?
bet Michael would know. It was a book that came out 26 years ago about was an early book about hacking. This guy, I think he worked for DARPA or something. It was DARPA Net before there was an internet, and they were calling it the DARPA Net. It was like one of the two precursors to the internet. And somebody was hacking DARPA Net and getting military information off it and stuff. And the cuckoo's egg is about the process this guy went through to catch the person doing it. Really interesting at the time, and it's all hacky. The guy was hacking into a big Unix mainframe, and it's all really kind of antiquated stuff now. But the things that this guy did to catch him was really interesting. Yeah,
Wow.
DARPANET, made by the U.S. government. Yeah, it was for DARPA, the research program, the government research program. Like I guess most people probably know. I don't like maybe not everybody, but if I'm remembering it right, the internet really came out of DARPANET combining with a similar network that was going on between colleges at the time, and they combined them together, and that was kind of the beginning of the internet. But the DARPANET was for doing research, this research government thing that was starting to link all these schools together and stuff too. Yeah, when U.S.
Yeah.
Army decided to unclassify DARPANET, it became the internet. Yeah. And I think they combined it with the college thing at that time, but I don't know. A long time ago, I probably don't know as well as other people. But anyway, the cuckoo's egg, I read it when it was new. I was fascinated by it. It was such a new thing. It's still an interesting read. It's kind of almost like a whodunit thriller kind of book. But just about all the lengths this guy went through, monitoring printers and watching overnight to see if this guy logged in and stuff, it was pretty cool.
Nice.
College is doing BBS. Yeah, I think that sounds right. Let's see here. What else do I have? There was an interesting article I read about Facebook, how they produce software as fast as they did when they were first starting up. And they called it the be fast or die strategy. And it's just the article's got some interesting stuff about what they advocated to make their coders go fast. I'm looking over to the side here to bring it up because there was a couple of interesting things it said. Well, if the page will come up now. Imagine if
Michael
you will.
said Michael says that he has a book for me on WordPress.
He's on a WordPress kick tonight.
Yes. Here, I'm gonna show you one that I have here. You're gonna love this one, Michael.
Yeah. Earlier, he was accusing you of being into ASP, which you know what that
Yeah.
is. Non-ASP.NET ASP, which I know all about. Okay, so here we go. One of the things Facebook did was when they hired new people, they indoctrinated them into a cult of speed for their first 3 to 4 weeks of being there. So it was expected that when you were hired your first day, you would have your environment all set up and running. By the end of the second
On
day,
day
you would
one?
have done, huh?
On day one, have your environment set
That's
up?
have your environment set up and ready to go on day one. Day two, you would have
Wow.
done your first commit, and that commit would have been out to all users and out to the public.
On day two?
Yes, on day two.
Wow.
Then, second rule, celebrate the first time someone broke something. Apple or Facebook always had this thing about we were into breaking things because
What is it? Move
going
fast and break things?
move fast and break things exactly, and that's so you sell it first time you break something, it's announced to the whole company, and it's a big celebration.
You broke something.
Yeah, the interesting stuff to me though. Embrace asking forgiveness, never for permission. You remember I used to say that in our last job when people were asking me if I was going to get permission to do something. I said, no, I'm going to ask for forgiveness. So I've always
Yeah.
been a big fan of uh, asking for permission or forgiveness instead of permission. Let's see, those are the good ones, I think. They invested a lot for quick recoveries from failures. Create a culture of disagree and commit. That was kind of an interesting one to me. Just that there's a whole thing about not being attached to your code when you commit it, to being neutral about having your commit rolled back or something like that. That it had to be okay with you, and that's actually
Wow.
a pretty good thing. But it's interesting cultural stuff to me as a place to work. I've been recruited by Facebook a few times, and you have too, I know. Um,
I wonder how it is now.
Yeah, me too. After reading this, I kind of asking myself, well, am I glad I didn't go with Facebook or not? Would I have liked that? I'm not sure. I think I could have done it, but I'm not sure. I kind of like things that move like that, but when it's a requirement, I'm not as sure about it.
Yeah.
Day five, Francisco broke production again. Hey, it wasn't him that broke it. Come on, be nice now. At least didn't sound like it was you that broke it.
I think the worst thing that I've done, what was the, um, I think the worst thing I've done is that I deleted a dev database by accident, of course.
Oh, I've beaten that before. One of my
I was
early,
trying to close.
uh,
Go ahead.
oh, I was good. When one of my early jobs, I deleted a production database, and there was no backup of the dog either.
Oh my goodness.
I just ended that software's life.
Wow.
Yeah, it was ugly. Although I have to say, my boss was cool about it. I had it rebuilt and back up and going in about 3 or 4 days, but yeah, it wasn't pretty.
Well, that was, I guess that was a good lesson, right? Have backups.
Yeah, yeah. That was probably at this point, oh, it must have been over 30 years ago, and certainly have never had anything like that again. That one was enough of an eye opener that you're not going to do that twice. And that's what my boss said. Well, the good news is that's probably not something you're ever going to do again.
Yeah. So I think in cases like that, right, if there is no process in place, you run the risk of, things like that happening.
Well, yeah, and
And
that's why that one wasn't laid on me too much because there was a lot more going on than me having deleted the database. The fact that there was no process in place for backing it up. Of course, this was 30 years ago and it was just kind of a really small operation. So, that's things like that were done 30 years ago.
What database system were you using back then?
It was Fox Pro.
Okay.
Yeah, and just wipe that Fox Pro database. Man, I thought I was wiping indexes that I could rebuild, and not so much.
Wow.
Yeah, it was pretty exciting. It was a bad day. It was good I had a good boss.
Yeah.
Yeah, 30 years ago it was Fox Pro. Fox Pro was one of the biggies then. Probably.
Wait, Corel had a database? That I
Oh
didn't
yeah.
know.
Yeah, I'm
Yeah?
pretty sure it was a D-base clone, just like Fox Pro was a D-base clone. D-base was kind of the first big one of those. The in the beginning, you had a word processor and a spreadsheet and a database, and the spreadsheet was typically going to be Lotus 123. The database was going to be D-base, and the word processor was going to be Word Star.
Yeah.
That would have been like the late '80s, early '90s. Yes, I could have been fired for that, Balky.
Yep.
It's surprising that I wasn't. Yeah, D-base was good, man. For its time, D-base was actually really really cool. It had its own language associated with it. They called it X-base. Um, it was a cool database for its time.
Yeah, you caught me. I still use SQL Server.
Yeah, me too. It's functional.
Yeah. And now with the way that you could deploy to the cloud, man, they made it so easy. Right click and deploy pretty much.
Yeah. So did you hear that?
It's been a while since I
Oh, go ahead. Go ahead. Your turn to go ahead this time.
no, I was gonna say it's been a while since I used MySQL. I know that there is a connector now where you can do entity framework with a MySQL database. So that's something
Oh,
that I just never had the chance. When entity framework came out, you could only use SQL Server, but now you could use Access if you ever want to use
yeah.
Access for some
Yeah.
reason.
Well, good luck with that. But they got a MySQL
Mongo and
connector for it now.
Mongo and MariaDB.
I haven't heard of MariaDB. Is that another document database like Mongo?
I think it's relational.
Oh,
Michael
really?
knows. Yeah,
Yeah, Michael will know. So Mongo's document database, right?
yeah. It's a
Yeah.
NoSQL.
Yeah, NoSQL. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, Bonk is confirming what I was saying that yeah for MySQL. Yeah,
Nice. I used MySQL once, liked it just fine. Actually, we used it a little bit at our last job for that kind of clandestine project that we
yeah,
did, where we wanted to have it
yeah,
off of the radar of the DB administrators. That didn't last
yeah.
long. They didn't love that. That guy was head of the database guys wasn't in love with that. Although he
um,
was nice about it. He was cool about it. He didn't give us too much grief about it. He let it happen.
yeah. Um, is WordPress still using MySQL, Michael, or are they using something else? And Lee, I cut you off. You were gonna say something before I.
I have
Um,
no idea what it was now. Look at my hair. You can see I'm not going to remember that kind of stuff after 30 seconds or so. Remember
yeah,
when Oracle was a huge deal? Yeah.
yeah. A lot of enterprises still use it.
Oh yeah.
Um, but I don't know if they're doing new applications with it or yeah, that part I don't know.
Yeah, I wonder about that sometimes. Is it just living off of its customer base that it's had since like the '90s, um, or is it that there's still people are still doing new development with it in a big
Yeah,
way? I really don't know. I guess if you're doing really great big stuff, it's still a good place to be.
Yeah, they still have those huge buildings in the Bay Area.
There's still some money there. They bought a whole lot
Yeah,
of companies.
yeah.
So, did you hear that? I remember what I was going to say now. Did you hear they came out saying they're going to ban this all sale of all new gas powered cars after 2035 in California?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that one kind of got me. It's sort of a tech thing. But yeah,
Wow.
yeah, you no longer be able to sell a new car in California that puts out any emissions after 2035.
Oh wow.
Yeah, that's an interesting one to me. They got a lot of infrastructure to get into place to make that work.
Uh huh.
Need a lot of
And
charging stations.
and that means that classic cars are going to go up in value. So they better
Yeah,
go.
my gas powered Hyundai will suddenly become like really valuable
Yeah.
because you'll still be able to sell used cars that are gas. Apparently, just can't sell any new cars.
Mhm.
They're saying that a number of states are getting ready to follow it too.
Yeah. Well, it would be great if there is enough infrastructure to be able to charge your car,
Yeah,
as
they
fast
better
as you
get with
fill
the
up your
program
tank.
on that.
Yeah.
It's
I think Tesla was talking about offering like a battery replacement instead of you charging your battery.
I've heard of that, yeah.
Yeah,
Or
I don't
they
know if
have them
that.
on trays and they can slide it out and slide another one in.
Yeah,
Yeah, I don't know
we'll
about that.
see. I don't.
Yeah,
Yeah, there. I
I
mean,
got
those things.
concerns.
Yeah, you have a Shelby? No way.
Oh,
Well, I
come
know that you
on.
like cars. You have a Shelby GT? No
You got
way.
a GT 300?
Although
Wow.
my favorite is a '67 GT 500. Or is
Yeah,
it
the
still
big
a,
block.
no, it's a 500. It is a 500.
Yeah, there was a 500 and a 300. The 300
Yeah.
was the small block and the big block. The 500 was the big block. I
Well,
think it
still
had the 428 in it.
the that's a very nice car.
Oh yeah, worth a dollar or two at this point.
Yep.
What I'd like to have is the Shelby Cobra with the big block. Those
Yeah.
are worth a couple million now.
Oh yeah. I remember the one that was in the movie with Nicolas Cage, Gone in 60 Seconds. I don't know if you saw
Oh,
that.
oh yeah, what was its name?
He used to call it Eleanor Unicorn.
Eleanor, that's it. Eleanor, yeah, the silver one. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
That was a GT 500, wasn't it? Or
Yeah.
I can't. Yeah,
67.
but it was a highly customized one. It was really kind
Yeah.
of a retro mod. Is that what they call those?
Yeah. Oh, you also have an Aston Martin.
A DB12? Wow.
Well, you know what? I think I take it back. I think WordPress is a good career.
Yeah, if you've got a GT 300 and a DB12 and you did WordPress, you've been doing pretty good. I don't think Michael's a big WordPress guy, though. I'm guessing. I doubt if his career has been WordPress.
Yeah, well, he that's what he's doing now. It's right, Michael. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Oh, you're doing Word, so like as a consultant, doing it on the side, or not bad for being a full stack Word. Is that an oxymoron? A full stack WordPress developer? I don't know. Let's see.
Yeah,
Do I have anything else good here? I read a thing about dead internet theory. Have you heard about
Did-
that?
no, what is that?
It's actually something that came out a couple years ago, but now they're kind of coming back with it. When it came out, it was considered kind of bull, kind of BS. But now the article I read came out talking about how maybe it was true, but just before its time. The idea of it was apparently that the internet's dead because so much of what's on it is fake. So it was killing it, because you couldn't tell what was real and what's not real. And at that point, it was saying how many huge percentages of it was bots and different kinds of things that it was. But at the time, I don't think it was, in this article says it wasn't nearly that true, but that now it's becoming true. And it's kind of interesting.
Oh,
And this
wow.
goes along with the thing Elon Musk came out, I think, and said, I'm trying to get the article up and it's slow again, but something like 59% of people on, which one was it, Instagram or one of those, were bots or something outlandish like that. Let's see here.
Was it when he was trying to buy Twitter?
Yeah, I think so. Maybe when he was trying to get out of buying Twitter. Oh, where'd it go? Elon Musk estimates that 20% of Twitter users are bots. Oh, that's a lot less than I was saying. Glad I found it. Some 42% of Amazon reviews are fake, according to this. What else here? It's only 10% of the accounts on Instagram are bot spam accounts. Of course, this is all hedged at the beginning by saying we don't know if any of this is true. We don't think there's really any way to prove it, but this is what people are saying. But it's an interesting thing is that, as those numbers grow, and they will, it becomes, how much does it affect the underlying usefulness of the internet in the
Yeah.
long run? So that one was kind of an interesting thing to me.
So not everything that's on the internet is true.
What are you talking about? I know the earth is flat. I've got a friend who does a lot of work for me on my house who's very conservative. Um, and is really, boy, he goes with what he sees on the internet. And there's some of them really outlandish stuff that's out there. And one day he was talking about, well, I saw it on the internet and it was like a real website, man. Oh, well, why didn't you say so if it was a real website? Jeez, it's got to be true then. 99.9% of Windows users actually do not own Windows, they lease it. Well, now that's an interesting concept.
Hmm.
I haven't heard that before.
I was gonna say something I completely forgot.
Ah, it's the night for it.
Yeah, it's gone. It's gone.
My dad always used to say, must not have been that important then.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's the so with this I agree very much with this, Michael. I think especially with Apple, I think Samsung is doing the same thing now
Yeah,
where
that I do agree with, definitely, about the
um,
phones.
where right now I think if you buy a Samsung phone, they'll take any model you have for a big credit on the new one. So it's kind of going that way. And even Apple has where you can actually lease the phone. You get the latest model, and then every year or so, you can get the new one and just trade the other one in.
Well,
So
and even with most software now, I haven't really run into it with Windows exactly, but certainly most software, including our software, when we start selling it, we're going to be selling it on an annual subscription basis
yeah,
or month by month. You can do month by month too, which that's pretty much like leasing it. It's
yeah,
you're renting it essentially.
yeah. And in my opinion, I think that's what's going to end up happening to cars. If you think about it, with Uber and 70% of more time your car is parked. It's
Yeah.
not doing. It's just there. You drive it only once in a while, but then you you pay all of it. It's not just, the percentage that you actually use it. So I think that's, for me it makes sense, right? To where, whether, in years from now, the car shows up at your doorstep when you actually need it. And it's kind of like, with self-driving cars being, in the cusp of being possible. um, I think you're just gonna, it might just be Uber. You say, okay, Uber, I need a car, and it's a self-driven car. You get in it, and it takes you where you need to go, and you don't need to own a car. People are not gonna need driveways anymore. They're not gonna need parking spots.
It's going
So
to be a long time before that's going to work for people like me.
yeah,
And
that
you've
is
been to
true.
my house. You know why
Yeah,
that is, since I live 40 miles from pretty much anything. Uber don't come here.
yeah,
I'm going to be needing a car for quite a while, I suspect.
yeah,
It's the price I pay for living in paradise. It's not that much of a paradise, but it's nice.
yeah. So this is a good. Yeah, if you already paid your cars off, then you're just paying insurance and your registration. Um, and if the cars are good investments like yours, they're only going up in value, not down. So, well, all right, Lee. I think it's about that time.
Yeah, this was a fun one.
Yeah, definitely. Well, all right, everybody. Thanks for joining. And this was again episode 16. I'm gonna write it on
That's
little
right. Make
notepad.
a mark of that. And thanks for coming,
The-
Michael and
yeah, thank
Julian
you.
and Balke and everybody.
Yeah, thank you for coming by, Michael, or dropping by, and we'll catch you guys in the next one next week, same time. Goodbye, everyone.
Night, everyone.